The custom data layer values feature is one of the most powerful features inside of ListenLayer, and it is available on most of the listeners, including the LiveChat listener. What this allows you to do is write rules and manage those rules inside of ListenLayer to push custom values into your data layer, which really allows you to enhance and scale your web analytics without any programming or development work. Now, once the feature is turned on, you're going to want to make sure that you have some custom data layer values defined at the global level. Variables. These are variables that are then available across all of your listeners to write rules to push values into. And so in this case, we're going to focus on a variable called chat quality. Now, you could track conversions every single time a user starts a chat, or you could limit that and say, I only want to track a conversion when a user reaches a certain threshold. And I'm going to consider that to be a high quality chat. So then I want to push a value of high into my data layer when a certain condition is met. And I want to push that into a variable named quality chat. And so I'm going to jump down to my custom values role, and I'm going to need to create a custom value. But before I do that, it might be important to understand what am I going to use to trigger this high quality chat signal. And so if I look at my data layer, when a user sends a message, we actually count the number of messages that user sends. In this case, we have message from user count is what that's called. And so based on my situation, I want this to actually equal 5 because I understand how my chat flow works and I understand what would typically indicate, somebody just having small talk versus actually starting to engage in a conversation. I might think that is message from user count containing 3. You can see we can also grab the actual text from the message. And so, for example, if you have like some pre-canned selections that the user can select from, like I am requesting information, about support, you may want to treat that differently than somebody who's wanting to talk to sales. So you can use some of these other variables to do that. But in this case, we want a threshold of 5 for message from user count. Now, in my variable settings, the listener is going to collect all of the data and characteristics from my data layer into this screen so that I can see what's available and manage that. And you can even set friendly names, which does not rename the variable in the data layer. It just makes it easier to find inside of ListenLayer. I'm going to call this user message count just to make it a little easier to find. Then I'm going to write a simple rule. And I'm just going to call this high quality chat. What I'm going to look for is just a specific variable, a user message count. And at the exact moment that this equals 5, I want to do something. I want to push a value into my chat quality. I'm going to call this high. And maybe in addition to that, I want to push this data into Google Analytics as an event, for example. But as a part of that, I just want to automatically include the location where the user was when they reached the high quality chat level. So in this case, I'm gonna grab this thing called origin path name. And again, if you go back to your data layer, you can look and easily see, okay, the origin path name is going to be my full URL. If I'm curious, I could always throw a URL parameter on the end of here to see, does the URL parameter appear in one of these? And do I want to use href or do I want to use origin path name? In this case, I'm going to use origin path name. I'm going to push that into my data layer value. And I'm going to save this. And just to double check my settings again, once my user message count equals 5, I want to push a value into my data layer. And I'm going to publish this. Then what I like to do is just do a bit of a hard refresh here. Now, the user's chat activity is going to be stored in their local session, at least the count of their activity. And so you can see my chat session is still open, and I'm going to say, here is another message. And here is a response. If I look at my data layer, as long as I'm still connected to my debug view, which it looks like I am, once the user hits this threshold of 5, then we push some custom values into the data layer here. So in this case, remember we wrote out that we wanted this to be a high quality chat, and we wanted to capture the actual location of the user. And so now that the user has hit 5 messages based on their full chat history, we now have this custom information in the data layer. Now, if I wanted to use this, inside of my data layer, an easy way to do, or inside of my tracking, an easy way to do that is to use the console, go to this quality chat and click on copy property path. And then in tag manager, I can create a variable. Go here and I can create a new variable. And this is going to be a data layer variable because that's where we're getting the information from. And I'm going to paste that path in. And this tells Google that, hey, I want this information to be pulled into my data layer. I might call this quality chat. And then save it. And now, next time I have a chat, as long as my preview's been updated, then what I'll see is that that variable will actually be available here in this view. Now, in this case, it's not going to be. I would have to start the chat session over from 0 to show that example. But once it is available here, you can use that inside of Google Tag Manager. You can take this variable, high quality chat, and you can push it into an event in Google Analytics, for example, and then perhaps only convert that event into a goal when that value contains high. So this is just one small example of how you can use custom rules inside of Listen Layer to define custom values inside of your data layer and really enhance your tracking overall without any programming or development required.